There is a force of nature within the heavyweight division. We are witnessing something that comes along once a generation, and as it picks up momentum, it cannot be denied. We have seen something similar in history past, but this is to be taken note of. The Juggernaut is on its way. The definition of a Juggernaut is a huge, powerful, and overwhelming force or institution. Sounds familiar? Let's talk about it. One thing that is true about the sport of boxing, the heavyweight division can be the most colorful of divisions in the sport, sometimes offering the most scintillating fights, matchups, and personalities. We recently saw a fight that took place between Joyce and Carlos Takam. Joyce is the young heavyweight. When I say young, I'm talking about young in career as far as fighting, but Joyce happens to be 35 years old, an Olympic silver medalist, and is looking to build upon his new record of 13-0 with 12 KOs. Unfortunately, Takam was the latest victim of the Juggernaut. In the heavyweight division, we like to see the excitement of the big men pulverizing one another and someone prevailing at the end result of a brutal contact, fist to face, face to canvas. And we see it more and more when men who have stature, power, and intestinal fortitude put their wares on display, as Joyce did against Takam. Takam came out and he fought diligently, but as soon as the Juggernaut began to put his game plan in order, you could see it would only be a matter of time, because with Joe's style, which is a smothering, aggressive, seek and destroy type style, but he comes on like a wave. He just continues to pressure and pressure, usually behind a stiff, pulverizing jab. He cuts the ring off very well, and he can take a shot. He can take a couple of shots, almost like you're hitting something that doesn't feel anything. But we know that's not true. The Juggernaut is a human being. But what a human being specimen of a heavyweight he is. At 6'6" and 250 plus pounds, Joyce is able to usually dictate what happens in the ring between he and most of his opponents to date. And his record is being built upon very well. For an example, let's just go back starting 6 fights ago, where he defeated Joe Hanks in a first round KO. Joyce was able to defeat Hanks, who came into the fight 23-1. After that, Bermane Stavern, former WBC heavyweight champion, succumbed to Joyce in 6 rounds. After that, Alexander Ustinov, who came into their bout 34-2. Then we saw Bryant Jennings, who had given Vladimir Klitschko a very unsettling fight where he lost a decision to Klitschko. He defeated Jennings with a unanimous 12-round decision that just saw Jennings covering up, cowering against the ropes, and looking to survive. After that, it was Michael Wallace, then Danny Dubois, who was supposed to be the face of the future of the heavyweight division. Let's talk about what could be on the horizon with Joyce. How about Dillian Whyte, who currently sits at 28-2 with 19 KOs? Whyte would be a very nice opponent for Joyce going forward, a fellow countryman, and also someone that many people would like to see dealt with simply because he has become an annoying factor in the heavyweight division with his mouth and not so much with his fists. Whyte possesses a very decent left hook, but with his kickboxer background, he really doesn't have the subtle nuances of boxing down pat. He leaves himself open a lot, as is shown in his fight against Povetkin, where Povetkin was able to feint him out of position and knock him out with a devastating uppercut. Now, even though Whyte was able to come back and be victorious in a rematch, Povetkin is older and a little more further along in the tooth than most of the other contemporary heavyweights that could be facing either Joyce or Whyte. So that's one fight that we could look at. Another potential opponent would be Adam Kownacki. Now, Kownacki, who's 20-1 with 15 KOs, would definitely be a very good fighter in the US that Joe Joyce could exploit because of his rambunctious style and bruising, give a punch, take a punch. Being that Kownacki provides audience crowd-pleasing antics with his come-forward, aggressive style, he and his talents would be the perfect showcase for a US debut with Joe Joyce, the Juggernaut, because he would be there for contact, and definitely Joyce would engage him in such contact. What a crowd-pleasing, exciting fight that could be, and a great US debut opponent Kownacki could be. But first, he'll have to get his pound of flesh and revenge, avenging a loss against Helenius, and that is on the horizon. So we'll see what's in store for Kownacki with that. But afterwards, if he's successful, a match against Joe Joyce would prove to be quite an affair, and I'm sure that boxing fans, heavyweight fans in particular, would be more than happy and pleased to see these two mix it up. Babyface, as he is known, would definitely bring a crowd, especially if the fight is held in MSG, because there's a huge Polish background following, and he can capitalize on that. So matchmakers, get your ink pens ready. The next opponent that would make a good adversary for a US debut for the Juggernaut would be Gerald Washington. In a matchup with Gerald Washington, who is not necessarily the most aggressive heavyweight out there, but this would look good visually for the crowd. What do I mean by this? Washington is also 6'6" and 260 plus pounds. So when you put that visual dynamic together, the Juggernaut facing another big man such as himself and being the aggressor who will cut the ring off, who will shut down this other imposing figure and provide the audience with the type of excitement, because he would be exchanging power punches with this other big man. I could see the Juggernaut breaking Washington down and providing just the type of exciting performance that people would be looking forward to. So this is one that could definitely happen and would mark another great US debut type of opponent. Now, when you talk about Washington, who has been there with the likes of Prince Charles Martin and Deontay Wilder, we've seen how he's fared against the top upper echelon of heavyweights, and it would behoove Joyce to consider a fighter such as this. I definitely think he's the type of fighter that Joyce could look great against, and his record 24-1 with 13 KOs looks nice on paper, but this is definitely cannon fodder for the Juggernaut. The next opponent that I could see him in with would be the same gentleman that we just mentioned who defeated Gerald Washington, and that would be Prince Charles Martin himself, former IBF champion, another man of that 6'5", 6'6" ilk, 250 plus pounds, and a southpaw. A southpaw heavyweight would actually give Joyce a little bit of a different look, and because Martin has been rejuvenated and remotivated, this could prove to be a tougher contest. Maybe not his first US debut, but maybe a fighter after he's had a US debut that people would like to see. It could even be a fight that they lure Martin over to the UK, though he may not want to do that since he went that route when he relinquished his titles to AJ when they fought a few years back. So Martin is the type of fighter that has to be taken as a serious threat, who is now remotivated and, as I said again, looking to get back to the top of the division after realizing that with harder work and more dedication, you can have greater success. And I think he is definitely a dangerous opponent for anyone at this particular time. So let's keep Prince Charles Martin on the table, but not necessarily Joyce's US debut opponent, but a very good one to consider. Lastly would be the man who deserves a title shot against a new person more than anyone else in the game, and that would be Luis King Kong Ortiz. With a record now of 32-2, his only losses coming to Deontay Wilder. He has 27 KOs. He is now over 40 years old. And after the 2 knockouts to Wilder, we really don't know what he has left. But he, also being a southpaw, is probably the best opponent that the Juggernaut can face going forward. This would be a tremendous matchup. I think the US public, I think the UK public would love to see this fight, and I think that their styles mesh extremely well. King Kong Ortiz has decent power in his punches, but the Juggernaut, being about 3 inches taller, and that devastating pulverizing jab of his would be something to keep King Kong off balance, and the right hand, which he seems to throw off of the jab straight down the pike, is the antidote for a southpaw. But if anyone could give the Juggernaut a chance At a loss, it would be King Kong Ortiz out of these men that I've mentioned. A tremendous fight there. Matchmakers, again, would be doing the sport a service to try to put a bout like this together. And this would be a great fight in the UK. This is what I think about the Juggernaut. It is no secret that, mentioned earlier, he brings back thoughts and visions of someone that comes along once a generation. Who would I compare that to, he being of today and speaking of someone from the past? George Foreman. The Juggernaut reminds me of a young George Foreman. He works behind a stiff, pulverizing jab. He cuts the ring off. He cuts people's time down. The difference between he and George, he absorbs a tremendous shot, even more than George did. He may not have the executing power of George, but he can wear an opponent down. And he's exciting, no matter what you say. People may not know of the Juggernaut, but listen, he is coming on. He's definitely a fighter that you would like to see, and against the opponents that I gave a short list of, he could showcase his wares and bring in more fans. Let me know what your thoughts are about the Juggernaut. Is he the second coming of a fighter like George Foreman? Or is he his own story yet to be told? Shout out to the LDBC, the Lions Den boxing community. Leave thoughts. That's all I have for you at this time. Until we speak again, peace.